everybody. So this evening I thought I would do a really quick review of a book called Rwandan Cultural Awareness by a guy called Justin Ngoga. And I don't know Justin personally, but I think he does run a sort of a cultural awareness course for people looking to move to Rwanda. So I will leave his contact details and a link to that below. Now, I just wanted to cover this because I picked up a copy several months ago now. There's a bookshop in Kigali Heights called Charisma. And just down the right-hand sort of lane, the right-hand aisle, they've got a little section for local authors. And you sometimes find books on there by local authors. Now, I haven't seen this one around much lately. I last saw a copy at Kigali Memorial in Gisozi. They had one in the gift shop. It's quite hard to get hold of sometimes. And also, I don't think you can get hold of it outside of the country. That's due to a lot of factors which make it very, very difficult for authors in countries like Rwanda, firstly, to publish internationally, and secondly, to get paid for what they publish. So even though there are international publishing methods, print-on-demand methods like Amazon KDP, actually getting a paycheck for that is really, really hard in many, many countries in Africa. If you're interested in knowing more about that, let me know and I'll do a video on it. But today, I was just going to flick through and maybe pull out, I don't know, 3 or 4 items that I think are particularly interesting. If you do want a copy of this book, you can either have a look for it when you get here in Rwanda. Maybe Ikirezi has it, maybe Charisma has it, maybe the Memorial gift shop has it. But also I will leave his contact details below because I got an extra copy by emailing him directly. And he sent one over. So in the past, I did do a video about some culture shock that you might encounter when you come to Rwanda. And in that, I did talk a little bit about eye contact and staring and a little bit about the difference between monochronic and polychronic time cultures and how people see time slightly differently and whether or not you need to be punctual or not. So if you're interested in that, you can go and check out my previous video. But one thing that he's put in here that is really interesting that I definitely didn't cover, but is very, very true, is about the fact that in Rwanda and in many African countries, people count the hours of the day differently. So we start from 1 o'clock in the morning, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we go round in a circle to midnight. But in many agricultural societies, including Rwanda, it's far more common to start the first hour of the day at sunrise. And so it is quite difficult sometimes for the translation of time. So he says here, the first hour in Kinyarwanda is 7 a.m., which is saa moya. So it's a borrowed word. Saa, the way that we talk about time, is often borrowed from Swahili. But the first hour of the day is 7. So 8 o'clock would be 2, 9 o'clock would be 3 o'clock, 10 o'clock would be 4 o'clock. I've made that. See, I've already got it wrong. I can't even count. But I have encountered this myself once. I'm trying to remember. It was a long time ago, but I had somebody coming to do some gardening for me. And I'd asked him to come at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And he turned up at something like 10 o'clock in the morning. And I couldn't figure out how we crossed our wires. And then later on somebody explained this to me and I went, oh, right, yeah, that makes sense now. So sometimes when you're talking about time in Rwanda, it does help to like really, really double check that you're definitely talking about the same time and that you're talking about the morning or the afternoon. And a lot of people here use the 24-hour clock for writing down time. So 1 in the afternoon is 1300, 2 is 1400. I think for Americans that feels kind of military. It's quite common in the UK for people to do that. Or not do it. I mean, it's kind of interchangeable. But here in Rwanda, people do kind of like the 24-hour clock, I think, because it's a bit clearer. And you're definitely certain that part of it's in the afternoon and part of it's in the morning. So it can get a bit confusing. In fact, I don't even know if I've really clarified that very much in my ramblings. Oh yeah, there's one in here about staying off the grass, which is very, very true. He says, do not cross the road walking on the grass. So if you go across the central reservation, look for the walkways, look for the pedestrian crossings, and always stop at a pedestrian crossing. As a pedestrian, you do not have right of way. Technically, you might have right of way, but pedestrian crossings are a really new thing here, and most people who are driving on the roads passed their test long before pedestrian crossings came into being. So if you think that you've got right of way, you are taking your life in your hands. Just don't do it. And it's difficult if you come from somewhere like UK or Belgium. You know, when you go to a road crossing, you expect the cars to stop, because in somewhere like the UK, it is a finable offence if you do not stop for pedestrians. Pedestrians always have right of way on a crossing unless there's a light telling them to wait. And to be fair, police are getting much better at this now. They are kind of standing there and watching, and they are finding drivers who don't stop or who start to move before somebody's fully crossed. But still, for your own safety and protection, do not assume that you have got right of way on a pedestrian crossing. Maybe in another 5 years, but not yet. So anyway, coming back to this part about staying off the grass, it is interesting. This has been a thing all of the years I've been here. I remember in 2007 or 8, I was sitting in my office and I looked out of the window, and way back then you used to have community security guards wearing maroon uniforms and then carrying heavy batons. And I saw one waving his baton and chasing somebody down the street because they'd had the audacity to walk on the grass. I would say I think it's loosened up a little bit now. It's either loosened up or it's just that the road layouts, there are now more crossing places to cross the grass without stepping on it. If in doubt, never step on the grass. It's a really odd rule, but it's kind of, I guess things are changing very slightly. Is now there is a sort of an attempt to create grassy areas and parks where people can go and just hang out. But parks just aren't really part of the culture. So if you go to Kenya, you go to Nairobi, there are parks, there are playgrounds for kids and families, and you see people walking around the parks. But definitely not in Rwanda. It's I guess partly it ties in. I talked in my cultural video about it's not the done thing to eat in public. So if you don't eat in public, then you're not going to have a picnic. And if you don't have a picnic, you're not going to be sitting in a park. It's that kind of thing. It's a bit of an odd thing. People, I guess, just wouldn't sort of see the reason to go and sit in a park. And I can kind of understand that a little bit. It's like, I guess, you know, if it's not something that you grew up doing on the weekends, like packing a picnic and going and sitting in a park or going and play frisbee or, you know, walking the dog, and somebody came up to you and said, hey, do you fancy taking your meal and sitting in the middle of a public place and doing that under the midday sun, I could kind of see why that would seem a bit weird. It's a bit like the concept of camping. If you've never really done it, it's like, why? Yeah, what's the saying? Mad dogs and Englishmen. Only mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday sun. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to do one more because I don't want to rip his book. I just want to give you a flavour of how useful this is. There's another good one here called Restaurant Invitations. And he says, it is very important to know that when you invite a Rwandan for a drink or a meal and they are not familiar with other cultures, they will expect you to pay for them. And whoever extends the invitation is expected to pay the bill. And that is really important to know. It's sort of completely the opposite way round to sort of the UK, US kind of thing in certain circumstances. So usually if you're going out in the West with sort of friends, you might go, we call it going Dutch. You might go Dutch where you split the bill evenly. If you're on a date, it's still traditional a lot of the time for the man to pay, although it's becoming, I guess, more common for that to be split, you know, because not all women find that chivalrous, you know. You don't want to be indebted to somebody that you've gone on a first date with. And I always like Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's way of putting it in her video on feminism, where she said basically, doesn't it make more sense that the person who earns the most should pay the bill? If you're going to do it that way, if you're going to have just one person paying, then maybe it should be the one that earns the most, be that the man or the woman. I don't know. I like that. I think that's kind of a good way of doing it. But I quite like to split bills. Anyway, but it becomes more of an issue when it's something like a birthday celebration, because in the West, if it's your birthday, you don't pay for anything. Your friends take you out, they pay for your drinks, they pay for your meal. But here, if it's your birthday and you invite people to go out, you're the one paying for everybody. And I still don't feel like that's an entirely fair thing, because like if 10 people split the bill for one and include one other person, that's not going to cost a lot for other people. But if one person has to pay for like 10, 20 people, it's really going to limit how many people you invite. The idea behind it is really that, you know, somebody shouldn't feel indebted for socializing. You know, there shouldn't be an expectation that they have to pay, because then some of your friends will be earning money and some of your friends won't be earning money, and you don't want to exclude anybody who can't pay. But I still feel like that's quite a responsibility on the one person who's inviting other people out. I don't know. Let me know which system you prefer, or if there's a fairer way of doing it. So the way around this is, if you want to invite people out for a meal, but you don't want to pay for everybody, you've got to be really, really clear about that when you first invite them. You've got to say, oh, would you like to come out? Everybody's paying for their own, you know, their own drinks, you know, or maybe I will buy a drink for everybody, but after that, it's everybody's paying for their own. And there's nothing wrong in telling people that beforehand. It's only awkward afterwards if everybody turns up and nobody knew that's what they had to do. So yeah, they're really interesting ones. It's a really good book. It's a very, very short book, but there's so much information in here. And the only sadness is that it isn't more widely available. I really hope he does some more print copies, because this one, I think, it says the second edition. So I'm really hoping he's going to do a few more editions of this, and that there will be a few more print runs, and that they will be available in more places. It would be amazing if you could get that on Amazon KDP, although the way that they pay, he'd never make any money out of it, which is a problem. But yeah, maybe there's a way around that. But it's just really good. And if you are coming to Rwanda, it's not just if you're moving and living here. It's a really good book just to get if you're just visiting. It's something you can put in your bag, take home with you, keep as a memento, but also it's just extremely informative when you get here, because there aren't that many rules here. I mean, it's a pretty relaxed country. You know, nobody's going to have a go at you about the way that you dress, or, you know, you're not accidentally going to make a faux pas that gets you deported, hopefully. It's just, you know, there are one or two things to do, like inviting friends out and walking on grass and, you know, eye contact. That it's just good to know before you sort of go out into the world, go forth and participate. So yeah, let me know what you think, and I will also drop his contact below, so you can drop him a line and ask if he's got any copies left.